The first time I noticed her, she was standing in the narrow hallway outside her apartment door, fumbling nervously with her keys. Her name was Clara. She lived 2 doors down from me in our quiet, aging apartment building on the edge of town. For months, she'd been little more than a passing shadow, a polite nod when our paths crossed, a half smile that faded too quickly, as if she was afraid to hold on to kindness for too long. I had just moved in after a painful divorce, trying to rebuild the pieces of a life I no longer recognized. My apartment was small, walls thin, pipes groaning whenever the water ran. It wasn't much, but it was mine, and in that fragile space, I clung to solitude like a lifeline. Then, one stormy evening, everything changed. I had just returned home from work, exhausted and carrying a paper bag of groceries when I heard a soft, almost embarrassed knock on my door. I opened it to see Clara, her eyes lowered, hands twisting the strap of her worn shoulder bag. "I'm so sorry to bother you," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "But, my shower, it broke this morning. The water won't run at all. The landlord said he can't fix it until next week. I don't know what else to do. Could I maybe use yours?" There was a hesitation in her tone, as though asking was harder than enduring the discomfort. For a moment, I was taken aback. I wasn't used to sharing my space with anyone. But something in her fragile expression, the quiet desperation, made me step aside. "Of course," I said. "Come in." She exhaled a shaky breath, relief softening her features. As she stepped inside, I noticed how carefully she moved, as if she didn't want to leave a trace behind. She carried nothing but a small folded towel and a bundle of soap wrapped in paper. While she showered, I sat in the kitchen, listening to the faint sound of water rushing through the pipes. It was such an ordinary thing, the sound of running water, but for her, in that moment, it seemed like a lifeline. When she emerged, her damp hair clinging to her face, she whispered, "Thank you. I promise this won't happen again." But it did. The next day, another soft knock. Then the day after that. Each time, she apologized, explained, promised it was temporary. Each time, I let her in. And slowly, something began to shift. At first, she stayed only long enough to shower. But then, one evening, she lingered in the kitchen doorway, watching me prepare dinner. "That smells nice," she said softly, almost surprised by her own words. I offered her a plate. She hesitated, then sat across from me at the tiny kitchen table. That night, we shared a meal of pasta and garlic bread, and for the first time, she smiled without fear. Over the next week, the distance between us shrank. She told me about her life, how she had moved here after losing her husband in an accident 2 years ago, how she was working 2 jobs to keep up with rent, how the silence of her apartment sometimes felt heavier than the walls themselves. She confessed that asking for help was never easy. She had learned to survive by relying only on herself. And yet, here she was, knocking on my door every evening. One night, after she had finished her shower, I found her sitting quietly on the couch, staring at her folded hands. There were tears in her eyes. "I know this probably seems silly," she whispered, "but having somewhere to come, having someone to talk to, it's the first time in a long while I haven't felt completely alone." Her words pierced through the armor I had built around my own broken heart. Because the truth was, I had been just as lonely. My divorce had left me bitter, convinced that kindness was something people took advantage of. Yet here, with Clara, kindness felt different. It felt like healing. The landlord eventually fixed her shower, but by then, the routine had changed us both. She still knocked on my door, not because she needed water, but because she needed connection. And so did I. One evening, she brought over a small plant, its green leaves trembling in a ceramic pot. "For your kitchen," she said shyly. "To say thank you." But I knew it wasn't about the plant. It was about the bond we had created, born out of a broken shower, strengthened by shared meals, laughter, and the courage to be vulnerable. Looking back now, I realize something: kindness rarely arrives in grand gestures. Sometimes, it begins with something as simple as opening your door to a neighbor in need. And when you do, you may discover that the act of helping someone else can mend the cracks in your own soul. Clara and I are still neighbors, still friends, and though life is far from perfect, we no longer face it alone. So if you ever feel like your small kindness won't matter, remember this: even something as ordinary as a broken shower can change 2 lives forever. And if this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe, because kindness has a way of multiplying, and you never know whose life your story might transform next.